We are a couple minutes before the hour. Today's topic is going to be on compassion fatigue and resilience. It's kind of one of those topics that is kind of, I don't want to say forgotten, but kind of put on the back end when it comes to in animal welfare, any industry, either shelter work or even animal control, rescues. Anybody who's involved with animal welfare will probably encounter compassion fatigue at some point. Anytime you're working with animals, there's going to be a loss from time to time. Some places experience a tremendous amount of loss compared to others. It just really depends on the type of facility that you're involved in. But it's not just, employees that are tending to suffer from this, especially this time of year. We are going to see this a lot with a lot of our fosters and volunteers, especially those that foster kittens. Whenever a kitten is brought in, it's usually a litter of kittens. A lot of times they're not super healthy. Maybe they've been without mom for a little bit and, they're kind of borderline starvation. They might have come down with upper respiratory infections or other illnesses that have just kind of taken their toll on their little bodies, and it's difficult for them to fight those kinds of infections and diseases. So it's really hard this time of year. If you ask any of our cat fosters, especially the ones that have been doing this for a while, they will most likely tell you that they have at some point lost either a kitten or two, or even entire litters of kittens. It's not something that we have much control over. We can offer these pets, vaccines and treatment and medications, but time is of the essence. Sometimes we don't get these animals to us in time, and the damage is already done. So, even though we do try to save them, sometimes we just can't. So there's going to be a lot of reasons why some of this, harder stuff comes up. And I'm going to kind of focus on just our facility in general, rather than the broad spectrum of animal welfare. But we will go ahead and get started now that we are at 12 o'clock. So I just want to point out this is one of those topics that it's important for me to state that I am not a licensed psychologist or healthcare professional. I am not a licensed therapist. I'm a volunteer coordinator. I am certified in animal training and enrichment, not any kind of psychology. I have an associate's in psychology, but I think most people have an associate's in psychology. Kind of a foundation that a lot of people have interest in. So with that being said, this volunteer training is not going to be a substitute for any kind of healthcare that maybe some would need if they feel like they're struggling. I did work alongside one of our volunteers who is a licensed therapist. She kind of reviewed this and gave me some things to add in, as well as her information that will be at the end of this slideshow in case anybody does want to reach out, whether it's involving compassion fatigue or just personal things in your life that are going on. Her information will be at the end. So getting started, compassion fatigue is a term that's going to describe physical and emotional and psychological impact of helping others. In our case, that's going to be in helping animals. It's very similar to post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD, but the difference is that in PTSD, oftentimes you're experiencing the trauma directly. Whether you were abused, injured, whatever the case may be, that trauma was directly to you. Whereas compassion fatigue, you are witnessing the trauma of others. So when we have a tendency to see animals that, are starving, as is in the picture on the slideshow on Instagram, can't see, but it's on Facebook. Starving animals, injured animals, animals with diseases, illnesses. It's very hard to see them in general, and then it's even harder when we lose them, um, for whatever circumstances that reason is. So, oftentimes this is mistaken as burnout, um, but burnout is a cumulative sense of fatigue or dissatisfaction. So it's not necessarily that we are not satisfied with what we're doing, or we don't want to do it anymore in the sense that it's no longer of interest to us. Um, it is the experience of trauma, that we're witnessing from others, and it makes us feel like we can't continue to do it, whether that's physically, emotionally. So, some of the signs of compassion fatigue are going to be feeling irritable, angry, sad, or numb, a sense of being detached or having decreased pleasure in activities. So, daily things that you were typically enjoying, are no longer of interest to you anymore. You really don't have any desire to participate in those things. Ruminating about the suffering of others, feeling anger towards the events or people causing the suffering. We see this a lot. Shelter staff, we are commonly experiencing compassion fatigue. And then we will have members of the community, whether it's on social media or in our front office, um, really get angry at us, accuse us of, you know, wanting to kill animals or taking some kind of satisfaction in killing animals. It could be a whole number of things. We've definitely experienced some strong emotions from others, in this industry. Blaming ourselves, definitely something that is common, in our shelter. And then also having thoughts, of having not done enough to help the pets who are suffering. Um, when we're dealing with such a large amount of animals, it is difficult to give every single one of the over 400 that are currently in our care that one-on-one attention that they really deserve. It's difficult, and we do our best. Like I said, we will provide all the basic, vaccines and treatments that we possibly can whenever we're concerned about a pet. We will get them prescribed medications, and we will get them vet visits. Um, if we see that, a pet is struggling being in the shelter, whether it's high stress or too much energy versus the amount of time in confinement, we're doing all we can. We're always instituting new programs and new options for these guys to thrive while they're staying with us. Even doing all of that, every time you lose a pet, you think, what could I have done differently, or what didn't I do that I should have done? Oftentimes there's nothing we could have done, but we still are going to carry some of that guilt that it was something on our part, that we did something wrong. So going into what compassion resilience is, that's the ability to maintain the emotional, mental, and physical well-being, while supporting others with compassion through the challenges that kind of come along with this industry. Sometimes it's very difficult to do, when you're kind of set, in a depressive state from all the negative things that are happening. It can be very difficult to support others when you really can't support yourself. So this is kind of learning how to, be aware of what kind of, things to watch out for, and also doing things now to help you, mentally and emotionally become stronger, so that you can kind of, prevent getting into that state of compassion fatigue. So also maintaining empathy, strength, and hope while taking the steps to prevent compassion fatigue. So compassion resilience is going to require some things. It's going to require you identifying your personal needs, setting boundaries and learning to say no, getting yourself organized, your schedule organized, making self-care a priority, adopting a positive growth mindset, not letting things that you have no control over start consuming you, dealing with issues as they arise and not waiting until you have very strong emotions regarding them to try and resolve those issues, finding a support system, talking to people that are, whether it's staff members, other volunteers, other fosters, talk to us. We go through the same things. We can definitely, support you guys, and in turn you'll be supporting us, and we can definitely work together to kind of help each other, stay encouraged. Doing something every day that makes you feel accomplished is going to be a great way to ensure that every day you feel good about at least one thing. And then also don't be afraid to ask for help if you are struggling with any of these things. And I do want to say, a lot of people have personal matters going on in life, whether it is, work issues, family issues, social issues, whatever the case may be. This stuff can all kind of help support you in all aspects of your mental health, not just in regards to compassion fatigue. So some of the things that we are not going to be able to control while we are being involved in animal welfare, and that we should absolutely not take personally, are pets coming in with disease, illness, or injury, dogs that are coming in with behavioral issues, rental properties with breed restrictions or how desirable a pet is to adopters, pets that are coming in that are not spayed, neutered, or currently pregnant, newborn puppies and kittens coming in with their mom, how pet owners treat their pets, if a pet owner is providing their pet with vet care, angry pet owners that are reclaiming the pet that maybe we disagree that they're great pet owners, angry pet owners bringing in a pet for quarantine, animal seizures from hoarding situations, puppy mills and backyard breeders, animal bites outside of the shelter, the spread of cat and dog diseases outside of the shelter, and then just people with negative views of animal shelters in general. We just have no control over these things. Yeah, they're going to bother us. They're going to happen on a daily basis, maybe not all of them at once, hopefully. But we'll get at least one or several issues per day. We cannot control these things. These are going to be things that are happening all the time, everywhere in the world. We can only do so much. And I think this really comes down to remember to stay in the moment, focus on the things you can control, have a little grace and with yourself about the things you can't control. A lot of this comes down to, one of the things we can do is educate the public about the importance of spaying and neutering and being responsible pet owners, how to properly care for their pets, things like that. But we just can't allow ourselves to get so consumed in all the negative aspects that are going to come along with trying to save all these animals that we just don't have any control over. So some of the things we can control and should take priority over worrying about the things we can't control is just simply ensuring that all pets that come in, they have their vaccines, they have their preventatives upon arrival. Anybody that has symptoms of an illness or an injury can be observed by a licensed veterinarian that we're working with to either, find treatment or get surgery or whatever they need to kind of help them as best as we can. Incorporating enrichment and other programs that improve each pet's quality of life during their stay with us. Spaying and neutering every pet that comes in that goes through our adoption process. Educating the public about the importance of vaccines, spaying and neutering, and properly caring for pets. Microchipping every pet before it leaves the facility so that we can make sure if they return, and hopefully they don't, but if they do, that we are getting them back to their home as quickly as possible. We can control, providing some training in animal handling and behavior for all the staff and volunteers. Helping dogs get a head start on their training so that they have the best possible manners when they get adopted into a new home. Expanding our community outreach and volunteer program to allow for more people to come in and help us so we don't get as overwhelmed. We can nurture a robust foster program to get a lot of these animals into a home to where they don't have to endure that confinement for whatever length of stay they might have. We can apply for grants, and we can increase our donors to help with costs of veterinary care and just pet care in general. We can hold fundraiser events. We can practice kindness to the community and show compassion and have empathy for others. Also taking care of our own needs, refraining from gossip. And I don't limit this to just gossip within the shelter. I want to include social media gossip, or trolling as it's often referred to, under that category as well. Talking negatively about a situation or a person without actually having that conversation in person with the person that it actually involves is not a way to alleviate a problem. It's only going to increase frustration and make the problem get blown way out of proportion. So we always have to talk to each other. There's no reason why we can't, even on a bad day, take a moment, regroup. Once you've gotten over that immense feeling that you're feeling, have a conversation. It's the easiest way to resolve issues. And then most importantly, through all this, you have to remember that you can't pour from an empty cup. If you want to help others, whether it's other people or pets, you have to take care of yourself. You have to make sure that all your needs are met before you can provide needs for others. If you're completely exhausted, fatigued, you're emotionally and mentally drained, there's nothing you feel like you can give, you can't give. You have to take care of yourself first and foremost, especially if you're a parent. You have to take care of yourself before you're able to fully be there for your child. So depending on your situation, maybe you don't have a lot of experience with, having to care for others, whether it's elderly parents, children, pets, whatever. But it doesn't matter your situation. It's okay to be selfish when it comes to giving yourself proper care, whether it's physically or mentally or emotionally. So some ideas that you can practice for self-care can be journaling, reading, spending time in nature. They say that nature is huge for relaxing you and reducing stress. Meditating and yoga, enjoying a hobby that you find a lot of fun or interest in. Taking a nap when you feel tired. Whenever your body tells you, I'm tired, or I need this or that, it's telling you what it needs. Don't ignore it. Definitely embrace it and use that. Visiting someplace new, getting a massage, finding a work-home balance is very important. You definitely want to separate the two in any field that you're in. You have to set your limits. This is one of those boundaries that you got to set, because everybody does need a break at some time. Even when you feel like those pets need 24/7, you have to be available. You have to take every opportunity. Yes, it's important But at the same time, everybody should be sleeping at night. So if you don't respond until early the next morning, that's okay. That's okay. Be mindful and remain present in the moment. Recite positive affirmations. Avoiding recreational drugs and alcohol, that should be a given, but or even alcohol in moderation, I think, is what's important. Definitely not using drugs or alcohol to numb any kind of emotional feelings you may have. You really have to be careful with that, especially if you are in a lower place, um, emotionally or mentally. Listening to music, watching a favorite movie or TV series, unplugging and having a complete digital detox does wonders for me. On my days off and on my future staycation that I will be enjoying, I have no intentions of having my phone on me whatsoever. I'll sometimes leave it on the charger and not even take it off, or I'll put it on do not disturb, turn it on silent, keep it in my pocket. I'm not very big on phones in general, but I do find that removing that distraction is very, very stress relieving. Spending time with friends and family, taking a walk or exercising, going hiking, cuddling with your pets. Whether your pet is a licensed emotional support pet or not, they are all emotional support pets. They really are. Getting creative, growing something, if you enjoy gardening or planting whatever, that's a good way to get into nature as well. Taking a bubble bath, setting goals for yourself, eating nutritious foods, staying hydrated, taking breaks, and then, of course, seeking help from a licensed therapist if necessary. Um, it's a pretty big list. Obviously, it's not the only things you can do. Everybody's different. Everybody enjoys a wide variety of different things, but hopefully there's some things in here that kind of give you an idea or inspire something else, something you can take the time each day and do one or two of these things just so you can reset, focus on yourself, practice your self-care, and get yourself to a better place before you continue with your day. So this is the starfish story. This is what's on my screen if you're on Instagram. So this particular little story was shared with me a couple months ago, and it just resonated so well that I just share it with everybody now. But the starfish story says, one day a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy picking something up and gently throwing it into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he asked, "What are you doing?" The youth replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surf is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die." "Son," the man said, "don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds of starfish? You can't make a difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it back into the surf. Then, smiling at the man, he said, "I made a difference for that one." So this is kind of an absolutely beautiful little story that really pairs perfectly with animal welfare. We look at loss and, it just really breaks your heart. I am going to bring up Robark Downey Jr. As an example because that was a very recent loss that the staff experienced that we did not see coming. And it was extremely difficult. It's still difficult. And it will continue to be difficult every time we think of him. So we experience this loss. It consumes us. And while this is happening, we're completely not ignoring, but not fully embracing the fact that while this is happening with Robark, there's, I think it was 104 adoptions. 104 other animals were able to be adopted, find their forever home. Hopefully they stay in those homes and have the best rest of their life. But it was difficult to get excited about that when this one loss, which was an important loss for us, completely consumes us. And I think it's important to remember that, because even when we have the hard days, if, the days where you come in, an entire litter of kittens is declining, and the chances of saving them are slim to none. We can look around at all the rest of them, and we can try and remind ourselves how many we are helping. Okay, so oftentimes I'll have volunteers come through orientation, and they'll ask, when they're allowed to volunteer, how long they need to volunteer, and I always tell them, even if you come in for 10 minutes and walk one dog or play with one cat, you are still making a very special moment for that one pet that day. It doesn't matter how long, how many hours you stay in the shelter. Yes, the more time you spend, the more animals you can help. But even on a busy day, when you just have 15 minutes you can spare, 10 minutes you can spare, it makes a difference. And we really have to remember to be grateful and appreciate all the good, because there is far more good than bad. So, Melanie Blank, her information is on here, and let me see if I can flip this. Okay, so she is the one that helped me kind of come up with this training. So she is at the New Braunfels Counseling Center. She is a licensed counselor. They do take any patients that are in need of counseling for any reason, whether it's compassion fatigue, depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever someone could be struggling with. They can help you out over there. So I did put her information here in case anybody would need that information for whatever reason. If you guys have any questions about any of the stuff that we've kind of discussed today, many of you will watch this in the future, reach out to me. You can always talk to me, okay? Even if I'm not in the shelter, because I'm only guaranteed in the shelter on second and fourth Saturdays. Oftentimes I'll be in on that week in between for either extra orientations or maybe meetings or something to that effect. But even if you guys need to email, you need to message me on Facebook, whatever you guys need. If you need someone to talk to, I will be there to chat with you guys or email you guys. So always reach out if you need to. It's kind of a difficult subject to talk about. That's why I've I don't want to say I rushed through it, but I do have a very difficult time with compassion fatigue. So, and as many of you know, I originally began working at HSNBA in 2018, and then I made it through 2020, and 2021 is when I left for about 2 years before coming back in 2023. So it can hit you hard. The worst part about it is that when you're not familiar with this particular struggle, a lot of times you don't see it coming until you're already very deep in. You're already having days where you can't get through the day without crying, or you're lashing out about every little thing. One minor thing, a piece of cat food on the floor could set you off entirely. So it's really important to practice these resilience tips and practice self-care on a daily basis. If you have to schedule it in to make sure that you do it, then schedule it into your day, because it is that important, especially working in animal welfare, where we are exposed to lots of things that, upon viewing them in certain conditions, make us physically ill. or the experiencing of death on a regular basis. It is extremely difficult. So please, I encourage you guys to always take care of yourself to the best of your ability. Um, Talk to us. Talk to us when you need help with this kind of stuff, because we go through it too. Having a support network with people that can relate to you and how you're feeling about these things, we are here for it. And you will be helping us as we try and help you. I assure you of that. So definitely reach out if you have any questions or anything regarding this. If I can find some more resources on it, I will try and put those into the notes if I can. I don't have any offhand because this was all kind of created between me and Miss Melanie Blank here. I'll put her information back up there. But thank you guys for joining today, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.